Hey everybody, it's Julianne from Cary Quilting in Cary, North Carolina, and today is Monday, May 24th. We have a new exhibit here in our meeting center, so I wanted to take a few minutes to walk around and share these beautiful art quilts with you and read a little bit about the designer and the designer's ideas or statements about each piece. And then you are welcome to come and see these in person in our meeting center now through June 6th. So this exhibit is from the Common Threads group. Generally speaking, they are all art quilters from the Professional Art Quilters Alliance. And so these are really interesting quilts with lots and lots of artistic value to them. So I'm going to read you just the artist statement on each quilt while Susan is showing them to you. This one's called Yin Yang Dragon by Evelyn Judson. Original design after traditional Chinese motifs. Cotton fabrics, thread of various fibers, hand applique, machine quilting. Inspired by stone carvings and ceramic tiling in the Forbidden City in Beijing. We were in China in October of 1981 on a vacation to see our daughter-in-law's family. Most of the dragons curved sinuously for several feet, but I wrapped mine around in a more compact shape and ended up in a traditional Taoist symbol. I was challenged to make this a strictly positive negative image, but the red-black needed a bit more, so the other colors crept in gradually. All of the background quilting is in Chinese traditional fill patterns that we saw on stonework, carved wood, textiles, and other artwork. All right, let's move over to this side. Let me see what this one is. This is called Anniversary by Marjorie Barner. Original designs, 100% cotton, machine pieced and machine quilted, appliqued and satin stitched. Quilted by Kathy Smith of the Quasi Quilter shop in Zebulon. Additional quilting by Marjorie Barner. The inspiration behind the design. This quilt was a challenge to members of the AAQC, African American Quilt Circle of Durham, in 2018 to celebrate its 20th anniversary. Several members presented their original patterns depicted in rows 3, 4, and 5. Using my own color selections and layout, I interpreted each person's pattern shown along with my patterns in a row 4. Dancing Lady series, recognition to Marjorie Freeman for patterns in row 3 and to Veronica Hicks James for patterns in row 5. I chose a variety of colors. I had about a year to complete the project and it took me about 6 months. The top row of the quilt represents our journey through travels across the U.S. The second row is dedicated to AAQC anniversary and our logo block. Next up over here is Hallelujah by Jane Hall. Jane says this is a pineapple log cabin pattern pieced on foundations using cotton batik fabrics, self-quilted on a domestic sewing machine. I really enjoy exploring the many variations this traditional pattern affords. That is the color of joy and happiness for me, and I was using the different scales of monochromatic prints to create dark, subtle secondary designs. Was challenging as well as fun. I celebrate the end of a long, dark year, quarantine and unknowns, politics and contentiousness. Time now to honor life with cheer. Next up is Spring Window by Casey Zucchino. This is commercial and hand-dyed fabric, machined, pieced, and quilted. Casey says, I love seeing the bright colors of my spring garden from my window. The garden becomes a chaotic jumble after a hard spring rain, causing the flowers to bend every which way. Next is Spirals and Circles by Roberta Morgan. Those who know Roberta know that she's well known for her clothing as well, her quilted clothing. Let me find her. We think of aluminum cans as throwaways. I'm always looking for ways to recycle. The use of cans as fabric was the beginning for this quilted piece. Cottons, felt, stitching, and beads were the ending. The cans are cut with a paper punch so the edges are smooth. They were easy to sew through by machine to assemble into this piece. I use spirals and circles because they represent life to me. We always seem to be running around in circles, and the good and bad times are the spirals. I'm trying to do my part to turn trash into art. Aluminum cans take 100 years to decompose. Plus, they are fun to work with and readily available. Fun. All right, next is Winter Gathering by Patricia Smith. This is an original design, cotton fabric, 40 weight poly thread. Techniques include applique, thread painted tree, hand painted birds. The piece was quilted by Patricia. Background quilting design by Donna Sanders. The inspiration for this quilt was some old Christmas wrapping paper I've had since 2007. It sat in a drawer, and every year I said I was going to make a wall hanging. I finally started last fall and finished it in February of 21. The tree was an idea I had that I wanted to try thread painting on my long arm. I drew it out on white fabric and thread painted it with 40 weight variegated thread. Then I cut it out and appliqued it to the background. I applied some metallic thread and glitter paint to the branches. The birds just seemed to want to be at a gathering. They were drawn and painted with ink tints, watercolor pencils, and then appliqued. Next is Sunday Morning Masked. Look at the mask on the sun. All right, let me find the description for that one. Oh, I don't see a description. Let's see. This is by Peggy Forster. Inspired by the suns on Sunday morning, the sun and all of its disconnected rays are made from the scraps left over from making over 100 masks during the pandemic. Lovely. Next up is The Other Side of the River by Mickey Adams. And I will read that right off of here too. I don't think I have all these. Commercial cotton fabrics and threads, hand-stitched, batting and backing stretched over a board and then framed. Fascinated by maps from an early age, I was inspired by this Aboriginal-themed fabric. I cut and stitched, making shapes and layers to invoke the idea of a botanical garden traversed by a stream. Very neat. Next one is called Down Under Dreams by Mary Ritter. Got too many pages here. Designed and created by Mary A. Ritter, living your dreams takes courage and steadfastness. My daughter had the dream of holding a koala bear since her childhood. In 2018, as a midlife adult, she took the plunge and traveled to New Zealand and Australia. She held a koala in her arms, threw a boomerang like a pro, listened to a didgeridoo, watched the kangaroos, and lived her dream. She also purchased fabric for a textile memory, which was used in this quilt. Your dreams may not only define who you are, but where you go. And next is Birds of a Feather. This is a round robin by the Common Threads artists. 4 members of the Common Thread quilt group participated in a round robin that began just as COVID arrived. The background was pieced and painted by Mickey Adams and one other unknown member of the project. Sorry, it says in parentheses. At that point, the background was mailed to Diane Wold. The tree is a reverse applique by Diane, who then mailed it to Laurie Shaw. Laurie added the birds using raw edge applique and the piece border. She then quilted the piece on her long arm. Overall, the project was inspiring and a little intimidating, as there were absolutely no rules. We were all free to add and subtract as we saw fit. And as a team, we are now flocked together for all time. And then we have one more piece on the other side of the doors. And this one is Wisdom of the Woods, Dusk by Gwen Brink. Repurposed commercial and hand-dyed fabric, cotton batting, cotton thread, machine and hand piecing, hand applique, embroidery, and quilting. In 2020, the world changed and got quieter. As it turns out, birds noticed too. Scientists recorded that with the decreased traffic soundscape, some birds doubled their distance in communication and recovered the acoustic quality lost over the past 2 decades. As I walked the quiet woods at dusk, hearing the sounds of nature, I imagined the earth taking a deep breath from the temporary decline in CO2 emissions. So, are we listening? What does nature have to say to us? And will the message affect our choices as we go forward into the next decade? Interesting. I read that same article about the birds becoming louder and making more noise than they had because of the lack of cars on the road and lack of noise. So really interesting finding. There were definitely some silver linings during our COVID period. So these are the art quilts from the Common Threads artist. You can find these, like I said, here in our meeting center through June 6th. And I certainly invite you to come and take a closer look at all of them. Thanks for watching today, and we will see you back here tomorrow. Bye.